Welcome to Fitness Explained, the podcast. I'm your host, Mel Waller. I'm a third-year sport and exercise science student, and I have a passion for science and helping others create a balanced and healthy lifestyle through understanding the science behind health and fitness. Hello everyone, welcome to Fitness Explained, the podcast, episode 8. Today we are going to be talking about physical activity and exercise and its effect on our mood. But first, let's talk about the item, exercise, product, task, or food I've been enjoying recently or in the past week. I've enjoyed matchas for ages, like years probably, but today I came up with a method, and people who like matcha lattes and make them themselves are probably going to look at me and be like, what a friggin' amateur. Of course you do it like that. Or they probably even do it better than I do currently, and thinking, what a noob. But today, what I have done is how I did my matcha lattes before is I'd get my vegan milk or lactose-free milk and mix it with my teaspoon of matcha, my Nutribullet, and then microwave it. But today what I did is I put a teaspoon of matcha into my mug, and then I filled it 3/4 with boiling water, and then with the next quarter I put in my milk, and it is so much better than before. I don't know why I didn't think of doing it this way like last time, but I highly recommend. Matcha is something that's relatively healthy for you. I put in maple syrup, which isn't the healthiest, but it's like it makes it taste better in my opinion. So yeah, but the benefits of matcha, they've got antioxidants in it from memory, which help fight free radicals. Having said that, I am by no means a dietitian, so I'm not going to go say, drink 3 cups of matcha a day and it'll fix your arthritis. I don't know. So it's just something that I know that is good for me, and it releases caffeine slower than other forms of caffeine that you can consume, like coffee. Not that I drink coffee, but it's just a yummy alternative for regular tea. So yeah, that's what I've been enjoying recently. I also had a roommate move in, so I don't live by myself anymore, which is awesome. So sorry if the acoustics might have slightly changed. I doubt they have, but I'm going to be recording my room in my room desk versus my other desk, but hopefully because there's more furniture within the confined space of my room, it'll help with the audio because it won't be as echoey. So I don't know why I wasn't doing this before, but now I am. Having said that, I'm closer to my neighbours, so if there's any random noises that you can probably tell are far off in the background, that's just my neighbours. I'm really sorry. Maybe when I'm rich enough one day I'll have a recording studio, but for now I have my bedroom and my vintage chic, not really that chic, but second-hand furniture that I call my desk/table in my room. So I hope the acoustics are better. If not, thank you for listening to my rambling, and let's move on to the main segment. Alrighty, so physical activity and exercise and mood, and its effect on mood rather. So why I wanted to make this episode in the first place is because I don't know how long ago, a week-ish, a bit more, yeah, a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, I made a post on physical activity and how it has a relationship with depression and exercise as well, not just physical activity. And I think it's all well and good to talk about that, but I think talking about mental health as a whole in the media and in a public space can benefit everyone, first of all. Secondly, I think that it's a good idea that we talk about the fact that there is a relationship between our mental health and our exercising rates, or how often we do exercise, because it's scientifically proven, and the more people that know that, the better, because I think it has tremendous abilities to help our health in so many ways, that exercise that is. So that's one main reason why I want to talk about this podcast. But as you might know, you might not know, Depression is a mood disorder, so it is a mental health disorder that affects our mood. So that's why I wanted to talk about mood in general and physical activity, because I thought that this is quite a big subject that making a little infographic on that I do for the Instagram post that I make is, I need more time to talk about it. So that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to do a podcast on this rather than a whole podcast on physical activity and depression, because I feel that a podcast will benefit more people if I talk about mood in general than just a specific mental health disorder. So that's why I wanted to talk about that today. So we've probably all heard that exercise makes us produce endorphins, and then endorphins make us happy. But that's just the very tip of the iceberg of content right there about the relationship between mood and exercise. So today I do want to delve more into it and actually talk about how there is a science behind what exercise does to our body that then altercates our mood and can change it for the better. So whenever I hear the word endorphins, I think about Elle from Legally Blonde when she goes and talks about that personal trainer, the celebrity personal trainer, and how she's being accused of murdering her husband. And Elle goes, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. I thought that was so funny because, I mean, no, you're not going to stop your violent acts purely because you're fit. That's just not how things work. Yes, endorphins are going to make you happy, but they are not a cure-all. Happiness and mood is factored by a bunch of different things like your environment, what your parents are like, other genetic factors that come into it too, your work, your sleep, like there's so many different things, but exercise is a massive part of that. And I think it is worth the discussion because I feel like it's not being discussed enough. So yes, exercise will help you make you feel better, but it is not a cure-all by any means. And that's just something I like to talk about before any podcast. Yes, I can talk about what the science says, but it is always case by case specific, and it's not like it's not going to fix everything, exercise. So we do know though that physical activity has been proven that it has a positive impact on our mood, and that's for several reasons. So I want to go into those reasons. There's three main ones that I want to talk about today. And a lot of that is to do with hormones. And then I want to talk about something else a little bit later, which is on study and physical activity and exercise. So reason one, so let's talk about what on earth are endorphins. So endorphins are a group of hormones or neurotransmitters. Remember that word, neurotransmitters. These hormones are serotonin and dopamine. That's just the two main ones. I don't think it would be useful for me to talk about others just because I don't want to confuse you. That's I'd rather you come out with more good than bad, and if I talk about more, I think you'll go out with more bad than good from this podcast. So endorphins bind to our opiate receptors, and they can help relieve pain too. So you might be familiar with the word opiate because these hormones bind to the same hormone receptors that opioids bind to. So an example of an opioid is morphine, and as we know, morphine is a pain reliever. So often after surgery, that's what patients are given, or before surgery, that's just an example. Which is why you will often hear endorphins sometimes called the feel-good hormones. And they also reduce stress. So let's talk about serotonin. So exercise increases the amount of serotonin in the brain, and there's a whole method as to how it happens, but I think that'll just be way too confusing, and I also am not educated enough on the matter, so I don't want to be going out of scope of practice. So it has an effect on the brain as a neurotransmitter, as I said before, and affects mood and motivation. So serotonin also plays a component in our sleep-wake cycle. So remember that for later because I'm going to talk about it later as well. So this can explain why if you exercise late at night, you might have trouble falling asleep because serotonin makes us feel awake. So this is a reason why a lot of people feel best when they exercise first thing in the morning or when they wake up. If you're someone that wakes up, at 3 p.m. in the day, that's probably when you'll feel best. But anyway, a side note I should also make is a lot of antidepressant medications aim to increase levels of serotonin. So now I want to talk about dopamine. So this also helps with fatigue. And when your body has higher levels of dopamine, you feel less fatigue. Having said that, we don't want increasing, amazing, super duper high levels of dopamine because that isn't good for us either. But there is optimum levels. And the general rule is we want them a little bit higher than lower. So dopamine has also been linked to Parkinson's disease. So that's when we don't have enough dopamine. And that's why exercise can help in the prevention of Parkinson's. But anyway, that's a little bit of a side note. Dopamine also helps with the processing of a rewarding experience, which is why some people can find exercise is addictive for them, because you get addicted to that rewarding experience. It also affects our motivation and arousal, and by arousal I don't mean the like getting in the mood, I mean feeling awake and focused. So another thing that might help you understand that rewarding experience is when you're online shopping, you're in ISO, you're bored, you're in your 3-day-old unshowered, unwashed, matching tracksuit setup / get up, sorry, one drink of water, and you're just scrolling through, I don't know, the Iconic, and you see that pair of slippers. You already have a pair of slippers, but these ones are cooler. And then you're like, oh, I don't know, it's not really in the budget this week, but I kind of want it. And then you're like, heck it, I want these. And then you press click, and then all of a sudden you get this really good feeling coming over you. That's that dopamine effect. When we buy things, a lot of the time, we have that dopamine effect, which is why some people find buying things addictive. So now moving on to the second reason is exercise helps us, or it makes us rather, produce neuromodulators, which are different to neurotransmitters. So this includes beta endorphin and anandamide. I can't pronounce that properly, I'm so sorry. Anandamide, yes. It's spelled ANANDAMIDE. Sorry if there's any scientists listening to me going, what on earth, someone prevent her from graduating, because that's atrocious. Anyway, so beta endorphin helps us with the stress response and interacts with dopamine to cause a positive shift in mood. And it's also associated when we eat food. So for me particularly, I mean, this is for your average person. It's not referring to those who have complications with food or disorders like anorexia nervosa, but which are different psychological impacts on how you perceive food. But just when we're talking about someone without those associations with food, like someone like myself who has positive associations with food, we feel good when we eat food, and that is because of this beta endorphin and a few other reasons, but one of the main reasons is this hormone, neuromodulator. So having said this, we do need more research on this and on neuromodulators in general. There are more factors than and endorphins and hormones, but as I said, I don't want to overcomplicate things and confuse you. So the third reason is that exercise reduces adrenaline and cortisol, aka the stress hormones. So cortisol is basically a long-term acting version of adrenaline. And we need adrenaline in our lives because when we start exercising, we need more oxygen to go to our muscles, and adrenaline increases the heart rate. And when we have a higher heart rate, that means that our heart beats faster. Heart rate is just how many beats per minute, essentially. And so the more our heart beats, the more oxygen and fresh blood is being delivered to our working muscles. So if you think about in, I don't know, primitive caveman times, you see a lion across the savannah and you're like, oh no, that line is very close to me, I need to start running, I don't know, up a tree or whatever, adrenaline helps get your heart getting the increased amounts of oxygen, because your resting levels of oxygen are not enough to what's the word that I'm looking for, to suffice the needs that are required when you're running, because you're using more energy, so you need more oxygen. So anyway, but cortisol is a stimulating hormone, and as I said, it's called a stress hormone, and it's produced by the adrenal glands, and it's produced in response to stress, like I said, a lion, for example, and intense exercise. But this, when I say intense exercise, I mean really intense. I mean like in the sun, no wind, when it's really hot, doing, I don't know, a really long run, fartlek, like intense, not just your F45 on a Tuesday 6:30 session. I mean really intense. Cortisol then makes fuels like carbohydrates. So as we know, our main three fuels are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So for example, carbohydrates, more available for the body to process and regulates your metabolism. So we do need it. So when people are like, oh, you need low levels of cortisol. No, we do need cortisol, but we can have too much of it. And when we do have too much of it, it's not good for us. So if we do exercise too much, it can be bad for us in the aspect of cortisol, among other reasons like too lower body fat percentage, etc. And then this this high levels of cortisol can then impact on bodily functions like our metabolism. So now that I've explained all of these, exercise and sleep results in the production of growth hormone, which is a hormone that helps deter high levels of cortisol. And emphasis on sleep, like I said before when I come back to sleep, remember when I said that serotonin impacts our sleep-wake cycle, because it helps us wake up. Well, when we produce optimum levels of serotonin, we therefore produce better levels of sleep hormones like melatonin, which is, the hormone that helps us fall asleep. Which then helps us get better sleep, and therefore produces better growth hormone, because we produce growth hormone the highest levels when we are asleep. So those are those three levels, three reasons how exercise helps our mood on a scientific basis. There are plenty of other reasons, like I feel awesome when I exercise, not just from a hormonal aspect and a mood aspect, but from I just like moving my body. I don't like sitting down for too long. I like getting up. I like moving. I like the social aspect of exercise. I mean, obviously not now because of Melbourne lockdown, but if you're someone that isn't in Melbourne, congrats. And also, it's fun to have that social aspect that often is associated with physical activity. Other reasons is if you exercise outside, it's nice to have that sunshine, which also can help improve our mood. So there's plenty of other factors, but that's the hormonal / physiological reason why exercise makes us feel good and it helps our mood. So now I want to go a little bit sidetracked, but I want to talk about physical activity and exercise and studying. So physical activity has the ability to make us feel more competent. It's been proven in studies. And in addition to this, exercise results in increased levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. I'm just going to call it BDNF. So BDNF is responsible for plasticity in our brain, or your ability to form new connections in the brain, also known as neurogenesis. So neuro, if we think about that in the Latin word, meaning brain, and genesis meaning creation. So creation of brain stuff. And And what are we developing when we are learning? We are developing new connections in the brain. So as I said before, BDNF helps us to create those new connections and therefore help us learn better. So it should be noted that BDNF is produced more from endurance exercises. However, when we look at resistance exercises, that helps us, or resistance training rather, it helps us with synapsin and synapsin. I want to pronounce this right. Okay, synaptophysin. There we go. Synaptophysin, which helps with our neurons connect with each other. Those two chemicals, so synapsin and synaptophysin. So both are really important. Both do different things and have different ways that they impact the brain and improve our brain physiology rather, not physio. And so that's why resistance training, like weightlifting, for example, and then endurance training is like going for a bike ride. And that's how we get optimum learning, is doing good levels of both. So, I mean, yeah, you can be a perfectly healthy person if the only real exercise you like doing is going for a run, or if the only exercise you like doing is weightlifting. But if you can get like 2 sessions a week of doing the other, so for me, for example, I'm not a massive fan of running, as I've mentioned many a times before, but I force myself to do some sort of cardio every week because I know it's going to be good for me, for one, and for two, in terms of physical way, and then for two, it's going to make me feel better, and it's going to be better for me, especially because I am in uni and I am trying to form those neural connections rather. So that's a bit away from the topic, but yeah, I thought that was a really important thing to discuss because I remember what it was like being in high school, especially, and not exercising enough. And I do remember the negative impacts it did have on my mood. And another reason why is because I wasn't learning as best that I could. And when I say high school, I mean like year 12 mainly. I wasn't learning as best that I could, and it is probably, I'd say 50% of the reason why would be because I wasn't exercising enough and because I fell off the wagon. Yeah, and then what was I going to talk about after that? So, okay, yeah. So you're probably sitting there thinking, all right, yep, I get it. Physical activity and exercise is going to make me a better person inside and out. Cool. But how much do I have to do? Like, do I have to be running 8 times a week? And, you know, weightlifting another 4 times a week? No, that's not what we need to see these effects. Studies have shown that if you are a sedentary person, i.e. you don't exercise regularly, so doing exercise twice a week at the minimum, ideally we want to see 3 to 4. If you can get 4 exercise sessions a week, even if they're just like 20 minutes, you will see significant mood improvements. Now, as a general rule, if you are under the age of 65, having said that, if you are over the age of 65 and you can do this sort of stuff that I'm about to say, awesome, good for you, that's great. But these sessions that I'm talking about, where I want to see 2 to 4 sessions a week, is they have to be blood pumping, sweating, huffing and puffing, and ideally at least for 30 minutes. I know I said 20 minutes before, but we really, really see benefits if they're more than 30 minutes. So I'm talking about 30 minutes of cardio, 30 minutes of resistance. Having said that, we do see benefits from doing 10 to 15 minutes of HIIT, because some people might say, oh yeah, you can do HIIT for an hour, but no, the true definition of HIIT, you can only sustain for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes at most. So that's what I am saying is ideal. And if you do more than 4 by 30 minutes sessions a week, that's awesome. You're going to see additional benefits. And in addition to this, in the elderly, strength training has been seen to have a positive impact on cognition. So as I said before, Parkinson's is another disease that is related to age, not all the time, but we often see older people develop Parkinson's. So that's another thing that it has a benefit for. So thank you so much for listening to that to this week's session, and let's move on to question of the week. Okay, so I've decided to go a bit rogue for this question of the week. Sorry if you've DM'd me a question. I'll probably answer it next week or I'll message you back. Either way, yeah. So, question of the week this week. I want to hear what you guys want to know, because I am talking about and researching topics that I think are really interesting and that I would want to listen to as a listener. But that's very biased of me. Obviously, I am not a representation of the whole world. So if you guys could please DM me, I'll include the Instagram below, or email me, I'll include the Fitness Explain Fitness Explain email down below. If you could email or message me a question of the week or podcast topics that you are super interested in, I would greatly appreciate it. Or if there's even topics I've talked about in the past that you think, okay, that's cool, but I want more information, and that I could talk about a more niche topic within previous topics. So thank you so much for listening today, and time for disclaimers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. And time for disclaimers. So please chuck us a follow on Instagram at fitness_explain_by_mil, or just fitness explain for short. I am working on getting us onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all other podcast streaming services. However, it's just a matter of time. If I have used any references, which I most likely have, it will be in the show notes / description bar below. If you could please like, follow and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Also, take a screenshot and put it on your socials and tag us. I'd also really appreciate that. Also, this podcast is a platform that's general in nature and not tailored to your specific needs. If you are struggling with your mental or physical health and well-being, please seek help from a medical professional such as a registered psychologist, registered and qualified dietitian, registered GP, registered exercise scientist, or physiologist. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.